This is topic 8, lesson 4, evaluating expressions. So we're going to talk about evaluating expressions using whole numbers and decimals. So this is really everything we've been doing before, except now we're adding decimals into it. We're also adding not just parentheses, we're adding brackets into it as well. So there are just two new things. One thing is decimals. So you have to remember how to do all your decimal addition, subtraction, multiplication, division to do this. And then the other thing you can get into is brackets. So the brackets and parentheses. And but what I mean by that is this. So here's our problem. So and I'm gonna go ahead and write my PEMDAS on the side here. Um, so to do this, you're gonna have to look inside the brackets. So I'm gonna go across and think to myself, okay, I've got a bracket here. That's great. If I have a bracket, that means I'm gonna have a parentheses inside it. Again, you always do the parentheses first. So I need to do this before I do anything else. And it really, when you think about it, it kind of makes sense because I can't subtract 2 and 1/10 from whatever this is until I solve whatever that is. So it kind of it sort of makes sense that there's really same thing with this here, right? I have add 2 and 3/10 to. Well, what am I adding the 2 and 3/10 to? So it doesn't really make sense. So basically, you're kind of paring it down to the smallest part, and the smallest part here is these parentheses. So I'm going to do 5 and 5/10 plus 2 and 3/10. That would be 7 and 8/10. And again, I'm just going to rewrite it as I go along, simplifying it. I really think that's the best way to do it, is to actually go ahead and just rewrite it. Even though some of the stuff you could probably do in your head, you're better off not, because then you won't skip ahead and realize that, well, I was actually supposed to do this sign over here first, and sometimes it'll make a difference, sometimes it wouldn't make a difference. So if you just follow the rules and take it step by step, that's your best bet. 7 and 8/10 minus 2 and 1/10 would be 5 and 7/10, because I got to do what's in this next. And then 5 and 7/10 plus 2 and 3/10 would be 8. Um, so that's how you solve that. When you have brackets and parentheses, you do the stuff in parentheses first, and then you work your way out. You could have multiple parentheses within inside something. You could have multiple brackets. You could have so you always start in the smallest part and then kind of work your way out. Okay. This now the other thing they might do is they might give you something with a variable in it, and then you have to um, insert the variable and then solve. So in this case, we have 9 and 8/10 plus x times 2 and 8/10, and I don't know what this x equals, and then they're telling us x equals 6 and 2/10. So I have to rewrite this before I can do anything else. So again, I have to do the parentheses first. So 6 and 2/10 plus I'm sorry, 9 and 8/10 plus 6 and 2/10 would be 16. And I'm going to multiply that times 2 and 8/10. And I can't do that in my head. So I'm going to have to do that over on the side here. And remember, with multiplication, we don't line up the decimals. We just ignore the decimals. With addition and subtraction with decimals, we line up the decimal places. So addition and subtraction, you line up the decimal place. Multiplication, you don't. Division is a whole other story. So 6 times 8 is 48. 728. Put my 0 as a placeholder. I'm going to do this part we should be able to do quickly, right? The multiplication. There's no decimal places here. There's one decimal place there. 0 plus 1 is 1. So the answers would be 44 and 8/10. And that's how you solve these. So it's basically the same thing we've been doing. It's just they've introduced brackets and parentheses and sometimes decimals. Okay, why don't you try this? Okay, so what's our first step? Our first step is we're going to have to rewrite this with our y. So I get a bracket, parentheses, 7 and 9/10 plus 13 and 5/10, parentheses, minus 9 and 8/10. Making sure we get that decimal place in there so nobody thinks it's 98 in bracket. Okay, so now I've got two things. I have to do this, and I have to do this first. And it doesn't really matter what order you're going to do them in. You can do them in either one, but might as well just go left to right. So we have 7 and 9/10 plus 13 and 5/10, which would be It's too early in the morning to do this. 21 and 4/10. Minus, and then 9 and 8/10 plus 10 and 4/10 would be 20 and 2/10. Did I do those right? And I'm sure you'll tell me in the morning if I didn't, and that would be 1 and 2/10. So I got 1 and 2/10. All right, let me just 7.9. Remember, we gotta line these up. Oh, that was funny. 21 and 4/10 looks like it's right. And 9 and 8/10 and 10 and 4/10. See how I line those up? I don't really care. I don't care really that I put this bigger one on top because it's addition. Yeah. Okay, and that's how you do this. This chapter is really the same basic concept all the way through. It's just that they're going to make them a little harder by adding brackets, by adding decimals, by adding. So it's basically the same idea each time. Okay, thank you for listening.